Hey guys, and welcome to Anchor to Truth. Today we're diving into chapter 22 in the book of Jubilees. So let's get started.
All right, guys, chapter 22, verse 1. And it came to pass in the first week, in the 44th Jubilee, in the second year, that is the year in which Abraham died, that Isaac and Ishmael came from the well of the oath to celebrate the Feast of Weeks. That is the feast of the first fruits of the harvest. To Abraham their father, and Abraham rejoiced because his two sons had come. For Isaac had many possessions in Beersheba, and Isaac wont to go and see his possessions and to return to his father. In those days Ishmael came to see his father, and they both came together, and Isaac offered a sacrifice for a burnt offering and presented it on the altar of his father which he had made in Hebron. And he offered a thank offering and made a feast of joy before Ishmael his brother, and Rebekah made new cakes from the new grain and gave them to Jacob her son, to take them to Abraham his father from the first fruits of the land, that he might eat and bless the Creator of all things before he died.
Man, that last verse 4 right there, that stood out big time to me. So we have, yes, Rebecca's making the new cakes from the new, making the new cakes from the new grain, but he gave them to Jacob to take to Abraham. I'm seeing kind of a process here, right? Like priesthood, taking it to Abraham as serving as the high priest kind of thing, right? So we have Jacob kind of acting in the role as a lesser priest, if you will, right? Because of that hierarchy, we had the Levites, priest, and then the high priests. So it seems like Jacob's kind of acting in the role of a priest here, bringing that to Abraham. Pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what we see is both the sons returning back with Isaac and Ishmael. You know, I know we kind of alluded to it earlier chapters of, well, you know, Ishmael wasn't sent out as the terrible son and never heard from again. You know, we see him coming back here. And then also I wanted to bring up that these offerings, these sacrifices, you know, we get kind of stuck in the mentality that all offerings are sin offerings, they're all blood offerings. But here we see that one was offered a sacrifice for a burnt offering there in chapter 3, and then in chapter 4 it says he offered a thanks offering. So, you know, there's so many attributes and aspects to this sacrificial system, if we want to call it that. If the way the Father had set things up, most of it's good. Most of it's just regular stuff that regular people would do, and it's set up in a very specific way that makes it, you know, holy versus just, you know, any other random offering or whatever. But it's not all sin offerings. Everything that we read about in the Old Testament isn't just has the word of sin attached to it. And I love that here it's letting you know that, hey, this is just family getting together. They did a burnt offering, they did a thanks offering. That was kind of it.
Yeah, one of the things too that's kind of point out here that I don't want to overlook is the fact that it says in verse 3, it says, and Isaac offered a sacrifice for a burnt offering and presented it on the altar of his father, which he had made in Hebron. So is this saying that this is the altar that Abraham had made? Or am I not seeing that correctly?
That's what it seems like to me. I actually wanted to point out that Isaac was actually working in that same role at this time too, that he was doing offerings. And right above that, it says Ishmael came to see his father. And in those days, Ishmael. So we have Ishmael and Isaac, right? Not always the one that's talked about in a good light. We have both of them participating in this situation here. Sorry, I didn't want to get off the point of what you were saying, but I thought that was cool.
No, that's exactly where I was going with it. So I thought that was something I didn't want to overlook there. That, you know, that this is an altar that it looks like Abraham had made himself, and that Isaac followed in his father's footsteps. Is now, you know what I mean? Now he's doing this and showing that he's more than capable of carrying on the patriarch.
It does say that Isaac had many possessions and he wanted to go see them and to return to his father.
Wonder what type of possessions that he had. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what was it that was so important for you?
Got to check on his donkeys, man.
Man, I know.
I would assume he probably had. I don't know. Maybe he had some of his. Maybe this is land. Maybe this is herds that he left on the land. I don't know. I mean, I think we always look at these peoples as kind of Bedouins, right? Like they move from one place to the next, and they kind of pack up all their stuff and carry it with them when they go. But maybe that's not necessarily the case. Maybe it's one of those situations where, hey, we got people over here, so we'll leave some stuff here, and we got people over here, so we'll leave some stuff here. It's kind of like, opening multiple franchises, if you will, kind of thing. Hey, when I travel to go see my father, I don't have to bum off of him when I go because I got stuff there already. Right? I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah. One thing for sure though is Abraham was rejoicing that both of his sons did show up though.
Oh yeah,
that was really cool.
Yep.
And again, so we're in the Genesis account. We're kind of left a little bit there with, here's some bread, here's some water. Have a nice life. I hope I see you again. Maybe not. I don't know, but we see here from the Jubilees account that's absolutely wasn't the case. That he was able to keep that relationship with his son Ishmael, and not only that, but his son Ishmael and Isaac both seemed to have at least they did have a good relationship with one another.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty cool too. Down here in verse 4 at the bottom, it says, so basically they're doing all of this stuff, right? And at the end of verse 4, it tells us why. That he, referring to Abraham, might eat and bless the creator of all things before he died. So this is the purpose that they're doing this for. So that's really neat. So regardless of what capacity they're acting in, they are honoring their father and their mother, and they're serving them and doing this thing so that their father may bless the creator of all things before he died. That's really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, leaving out on the best terms possible.
Yep.
All right, guys, let's pick it back up in verse 5. And it says, and Isaac too sent by the hand of Jacob to Abraham a best thank offering that he might eat and drink. And he ate and he drank and blessed the Most High Elohim, who had created heaven and earth, who had made all the fat things of the earth, and given them to the children of men, that they might eat and drink and bless their Creator. And now I give thanks unto thee, my Elohim, because thou hast caused me to see this day. Behold, I am 180 years, an old man and full of days, and all of my days have been unto me peace. The sword of the adversary has not overcome me, and all that thou hast given me and my children and all the days of my life until this day. My Elohim, may thy mercy and thy peace be upon thy servant and upon the seed of his son, and that they may be to thee a chosen nation, an inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth, from henceforth unto all the days of the generations of the earth, unto all the ages.
Wow.
What a blessing.
Right. So the first two things that stood out to me in verse 5, I've got highlighted here. It says a best thank offering. So they came with it, right? They brought the best of what they had, right? This is last meal with Dad. We're gonna make it a good one. And then he blessed. He ate and drank and blessed in verse 6, and blessed the Most High Elohim, who hath created heaven and earth, who hath made all the fat things of the earth. I thought that was awesome. And you know what? The best meats are really fatty. Oh, that fat gives some flavor, bruh. What you guys got in this?
I thought it was interesting that we see, again, going back to verse 5, that it says, and Isaac too sent by the hand of Jacob to Abraham. So it's almost as if Jacob is the one running the procession of events here. If Jacob is the one who's sent out, there's like a sense of, we've passed on the family stripes. And the reason why I even go that way is when we look at the Levitical system as it's set up, you enter the priesthood and the beginning parts like 30, and then by the time you're around 50, you start to pass it on to the younger and the next generation. So it wasn't you're no longer qualified, or you're a bad guy, or you failed in your mission. It's hey, we need to keep this thing perpetually running, and we always need to be training up the younger man. And we read that in Titus 2, talking about the older train up the younger. So it could be that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they're all existing at the same time. They all had this role, but right now Jacob is the one who's holding it and maintaining it, while the other ones are more of an advisory role in that perspective. So I just thought that was interesting to see that Jacob was the one who actually sent Isaac in this verse.
Yeah, what I also like too, guys, in this story so far is the fact that this is the way I think all of us would like to go out. You know, we always see the stories of people on their deathbed and people kind of hovering around, and you know, maybe you've got to be there. I've got to be there for my father when he passed away. I was very thankful for that, to be there with him. And but you know, we don't always get that opportunity to have that time and to know Abraham's wisdom, to know, hey, I'm leaving here soon, and for the rest of the family to recognize this and not go, oh, Dad, you're going to live forever, don't worry about it. They knew, hey, if Abraham said, hey, my time's coming, there's a good chance this is it, so let's make the very best of this moment that we can. Just like you said earlier, Kyle, how he said, you know, this, what do they call it, the best thank offering.
Yeah.
I think there would be some t-shirts that say the best thank offering. Anyway, that they might eat and drink. And so this is cool that they're basically saying, hey, this is our last meal with our patriarch. This is our last meal with my father. This is my last meal with my grandfather. This is, you know, whatever it might be. And what a really cool way to go out, to leave this scene of this world, is to say, hey, it's basically you're having your going away party.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we always have the parties for people who are away and come home. This is a going home party for Abraham. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it actually it does tell us that right here in verse 7, Joe. Just backing up what you're saying there. It says, and now I give thanks unto thee, my Elohim, because thou hast caused me to see this day. Right. And so he knows it's coming, right? How awesome is that? The Father says, okay, your day's coming, get ready for it. You'll take your last breath. Man, how awesome of a relationship is that to have with the Father, that he reveals that.
Absolutely.
And also, Joe, I'm glad you brought that up about the t-shirts. So guys, go ahead and be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, all that kind of good stuff, and get ready, because we got some shirts coming. We think you're going to like them. What you got for us, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, to that point of him knowing that his last days are coming, that he feels, you know, a sense of accomplishment. His kids are back around him. He's having this last great event. And you read the rest of this verse 9, and it kind of goes into all of these covenants and promises that have been sort of just lumped on and built upon themselves. Where it says, you know, a chosen nation, an inheritance among the nations, of the earth henceforth until all the days of the generations of the earth, until all the ages. And something I just recommend you guys looking into and studying, without it getting weird, of course, is, you know, when it talks about the ages, it's not just saying more years. It's talking about specific periods of time that, you know, maybe that we don't really speak that way now, and we don't really count time in ages, but it's clearly all throughout Scripture. Even Yeshua talks about, you know, so is the coming of the Son of Man at the end of the age. And like, well, what age? Well, what's an age? How do we count an age? And there's a lot of information that really flows into that gives us some understanding of biblical prophecy, that gives us some understanding of what people are talking about in the Bible. There's all these ages, and it doesn't mean 2 years, doesn't mean 30 years. It means something. And I think that's something that really is lost on our modern calendar and our modern counting of time, our modern way of viewing history. And so I don't want to give you the answers. I just say, you know, that's something to go and look into, and to try to, you know, maybe make that determination without going into the weird stuff, like new and then age next to each other on Google.
Right.
Maybe skip that.
Right. I would say this, Jonathan, that I will give out one answer, that the last age that we will be in will be the age of rest. It will be a Sabbath rest. So looking forward to that one. Yeah,
man. It's you're right though, Jonathan. It's real easy to jump into the weird stuff and get into all the astrology type stuff, and you know, age. What are, I don't even know what we're in right now or whatever, but these ages, like Age of Aquarius, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They make songs about them and stuff, you know. So yeah, there's some crazy stuff out there.
Stay away from that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but there's some really clean ones that cover about a 7,000 year period and different timelines that help us to understand where the Bible's at and when
right.
Yeshua showed up and when he's going to show up again. And it doesn't try to get us down into the specificity of the date of his return, but the time frame ish. And so definitely some fun things to look into and some fun ways to interpret those verses in the future.
Well, you know what? Maybe we can dig into this just a little bit more. I mean, we are in the age of grace, right?
Right.
Um, so that's an age.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people misconstrue that to mean, oh, we're in the age of grace. We could just, willy nilly do whatever, and
Go
we're
go
good.
read Paul again.
Yeah, you might want to reread that. Read Peter, then go read Paul.
Yeah.
Don't rob Peter and pay him, Paul.
Right.
Okay,
Oh boy.
I digress. Okay, I'm getting weird here now, guys. Take over.
Well, shifting gears just a little bit from that, I do agree that that's something that, when it comes to a calendar, when it comes to the time that we're living in, that I believe that all that can actually be walked out and looked at, the different ages and the ages that are to come. Just real quick for me, I definitely don't think we're on the timeline. I think we're a little bit further ahead of, I think right now, I think it's supposed to be 57, 82 or somewhere in there. I definitely
84, I
believe,
think.
or 84, yeah, somewhere in there. And I don't know exactly,
According
but
to what, the Jewish calendar?
yes.
Okay,
And
yeah,
so I believe that we're actually more along it than that. I think we're closer to, I honestly think we're closer to that period of rest that's coming,
I agree.
that we could see that within our lifetime. So
Only
that's my
pray that you're
personal
right.
opinion. Yeah, that's my personal opinion. So don't take it to the bank. You may not want to cash that check just yet. So, but switching gears a little bit, what I like is that commentary on the side here in chapter 22. Kyle, if you could pull that up.
Sure.
It says Israel is God's inheritance. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. It's talking about Israel is a people, not a land. This follows seed, not whomever occupies the land. Gentile believers have been grafted into this seed in the days of Abraham and throughout the Exodus accounts. So I think it's important. Sometimes we kind of get focused on the landmass a lot,
Yep.
and we forget about that. This is really all about a people group, regardless of
Mhm.
where that people group lived. Did God have a land specific for His people? Absolutely, He did. But also, we know that we're all living in the diaspora right now. We're scattered all over this world, in that we are part of that seed of Abraham. We may not live physically in the land of Israel, but we are grafted into that. So
Right.
just a little reminder.
No, great point.
All right, guys, let's continue on to verse 10. And it says, and he called Jacob and said, my son Jacob, may the Elohim of all bless thee and strengthen thee to do righteousness and his will before him, and may he choose thee and thy seed, that ye may become a people for his inheritance according to his will always. And do thou, my son Jacob, draw near and kiss me. And he drew near and he kissed him. And he said, blessed be my son Jacob, and all the sons of Elohim Most High, unto all the ages. This is interesting, all the ages. May Elohim give unto thee a seed of righteousness, and some of thy sons may he sanctify in the midst of the whole earth. May nations serve thee, and all the nations bow themselves before thy seed. Be strong in the presence of men, and exercise authority over all the seed of Seth. It's interesting. Then thy ways and all the ways of thy sons will be justified, so that they shall become a holy nation. May the Most High Elohim give thee all the blessings wherewith he hath blessed me, and wherewith he blessed Noah and Adam. May they rest on the sacred head of all thy seed from generation to generation forever. And may he cleanse thee from all the unrighteousness and impurity, that thou mayest be forgiven all thy transgressions and all thy sins of ignorance. And may he strengthen thee and bless thee, and mayest thou inherit the whole earth. And may he renew his covenant with thee, that thou mayest be to him a nation for his inheritance for all the ages, that he may be to thee and to thy seed a Elohim in truth and in righteousness throughout all the days of the earth. And do thou, my son Jacob, remember my words and observe the commandments of Abraham thy father. Separate thus thyself from the nations and eat not with them, and do not according to their works, and become not their associate. For their works are unclean, and all their ways are a pollution and an abomination and uncleanness. Wow.
There is a lot to unpack in all of that. Good gracious.
Yeah, man. What a blessing, though.
Right? Okay, yeah. So to begin with, over here in verse 11, it says a seed of righteousness. And it talks about all the nations will bow themselves before thy seed. Well, I think there's a very specific time we hear about in prophecy that's referencing all the nations bowing before someone. And it's described also up here where it says a seed of righteousness. So clearly this is a reference to Yeshua, our Messiah here. I thought that was really cool.
Yep.
Pointing that out as kind of the first part of this blessing. What do you guys have to say about this seed of Seth situation over here? Because there's there's all kind of talk about what that might be. What do you what do you guys have to say about that?
Well, one of the theories is that we believe that the angels came and they did what they did with the daughters of men, and then a lot of people say that this is the Seth's, theory where it was the sons of Seth that actually came in and took the daughters of, and they did what had happened. So it's interesting that we see this in here. I still lean on the fact that it was angels, that did what they did.
Right.
But anyway, it seems that there's something about the seed of Seth, because again, we're talking about the seed of Abraham. We're talking about the blessing of the seed of Abraham. And so the fact that they bring Seth in there, I'm not 100% sure on that. What do you guys think on that, though? What are your thoughts? I'm assuming that it must mean that the seed of Seth that went forward wasn't a blessed seed. It was, generations of people who I'm assuming were not blessed.
Well, there's all kind of thoughts and ideas, right? Whether there was bad people in the lineage and all that kind of good stuff. And we can track lineages and we can look and we can see that in Seth's lineage, there were some good folks and probably some bad folks too, right? Like lots of both of them. Well, either way, what this is saying, be strong in the presence of men and exercise authority over all the seed of Seth. Well, this authority would be a reference to priestly and kingdom type authority. So regardless of whether we're referring to people who are worshiping the Most High, but are a seed of Seth, they're still going to exercise authority over them because of their lineage. And if it's the bad guys, still going to exercise authority over them. So either way, you're covered.
Right.
Yeah, and in verse 12, I think it's interesting the way that this verse starts off. It says, "Be strong in the presence of men." So he's essentially telling them, you're going to have to stand on your own 2 feet here. But I think the wording in it's very similar. It reminds me of how many times it's said of Joshua, "Be strong and courageous." Be prepared to make those hard decisions, but also be prepared to lean on the Father in all your ways. And so it goes on to say, and exercise authority over the seed of Seth. So, of course, I'm looking and I'm trying to dig around. And so we know that Adam and Eve that are obvious in the Genesis account had the 3 kids that we know about. We have Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel. Abel had no kids that we know of. And then you had the son that was the quote unquote replacement, and that was Seth. Well, from the line of Seth, we get Enos, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah, and then the likes. So this is the opposing seed of Cain. You have Cain and his seed, Abel with none, and then Seth now with the lineage that actually is going to be the one to carry on. So he's saying, and the way that I'm reading it is, take authority over this, take control over it, make sure that this continues to proceed as it's gone so far, that the lineage of Noah and everyone else who followed after is one that's going to be available, one that's going to be one that God can use as it is to this day right now. But we could mess this up. So far, we've been good. Let's go all the way back to Seth, not to Cain. From that day, I mean, we're talking about kid number 3, right? Or very early on, depending on how we look at it. And that line, let this continue. Let this be one that's like, almost like Kyle said, let it be holy. Let it be one that's ruled over by a holy priesthood and not just man and man's ways. So I hope that's not in a disagreement way. It's just more of a, let's look at it and see, is there a little bit more to that story? Why did he go out of his way to say it this way and to go back all the way to original Seth?
No, I think you're right, dude. I think
Yeah,
you
I think
nailed
that
it.
makes sense. Yeah. Because when you read the rest of that, I agree with you on that, Jonathan, because I think the rest of that verse in 12 kind of says why. It says, then thy ways and the ways of thy sons will be justified.
All right.
So continue. Actually, what he's saying is you're not taking authority like you're taking anything away. What you're doing is continuing that seed by taking authority. That way, it says, then thy ways and the ways of thy sons will be justified in doing so. So I think that was a better way to look at it. Good call on that one.
And I saw exercise authority almost like take responsibility.
Right.
Make it your own. Put your name, your stamp of approval on it. Don't let this go to the wayside. Treat it like your shiny car. Don't treat it like the rental.
Yeah. Keep it going. Keep it
Well,
going
again,
and do better.
Yeah, again, this goes back to the family name. And Abraham has mentioned that multiple times throughout the passages about that their name will be carried on. And again,
Nailed it.
today, what do we say? I serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Right.
So their name is definitely carried on for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and a little bit of backing to that goes into 13 where it says he blessed Noah and Adam. So he's literally saying, let's go back to number one person, literally the number one person.
We're going back to ground zero here.
You're right, because Adam was the first of man creation. Noah was the first of what was left over after the flood. After a full cleansing, a full reset, it was Noah. So it started off with Adam, then it was Noah, and then now we're seeing the rest of the genealogies fall out from that. So it's very very telling that he's saying this is God's way and God's plan, and we need to make sure we don't deviate from it. It's been the same since the beginning. It's going to be the same whenever we see Moses. It's going to be the same whenever Yeshua shows up, and it's going to be the same whenever he comes back the second time.
Yeah, we have to remember that oh, this is good. This is good. I'm so glad you brought this up, Jonathan. I'm so glad you brought this into it because it's just more and more it's just pouring out here. Okay. So we have from Adam all the way to Abraham where things have been done and hey, good on them. They've been blessed, all that kind of good stuff, right? But Abraham was unique. He was the one who had a lot of firsts with the Most High. Remember, as we previously read, right? So there is some improvement in this system. There is some more precise worship and orderly things being put in place here that hasn't necessarily been done, or at least done the same way previously. So with Abraham being a first for a lot of things, he's saying, yeah, by continuing this, you're going to be exercising authority over all the sons of Seth and all of them. That's really cool, man. Good catch, dude.
Yeah, I really like that verbiage too in 13 where it says, where again, when you guys brought up about, and he blessed Noah and Adam, it says, and may they rest on the sacred head of thy seed from generation to generation forever. So again, I think that's just going more into what you were saying, Jonathan, about this going from the very beginning, from ground zero with Adam, going all the way. He says, hey, you guys are responsible going forth, to take authority here to make sure that this lineage stays to where it stays on track, right, and goes where it needs to go. Because in verse 14 it says, and may he cleanse thee from all unrighteousness and impurity, that thou mayest be forgiven all thy transgressions and thy sin of ignorance, and that he may strengthen thee and bless thee, and mayest thou inherit not just part, but the whole earth. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, and speaking of we talked about the ages, and that came up again in this section here. We're looking at 2,000 plus years from creation, at least from as we're counting the Jubilees. It said 44th Jubilee, so that's 2,200 years. So this would have been at least some millennial transition time we're starting in the year 2000, or whatever the BC equivalent is. I have no idea. But when we're looking at it from that perspective, he's saying, look how much history we have behind us. Look how far this gospel message, this gospel of the kingdom, this path of righteousness has survived from Adam up until today. Who are we to mess this up? We've got years and years and years. We've seen the flood. We've seen Tower of Babel. We've seen this stuff. We know better. Let's not go back to that kind of stuff. And then in 14, he's like, all right, so I'm telling you to keep charge. I'm telling you to keep everything together. Now 14 is like, now cleanse yourself from all unrighteousness. He's now using language that we use today in modern church language. Cleanse yourself from all unrighteousness, and then even forgive your sins and the sins of ignorance, right? They're saying stuff that we feel is in our generation. Like, oh yeah, don't forget the sins of omission and sins of commission, right? These are all these, real nice church type words and church theology, but I mean, he's laying it down right here better than we have it today. And so it's no wonder that they had a grasp on what was going on. It's no wonder that whenever they would mess up, they had a path for repentance and a path for being back on the righteousness, or the righteous path. And it's just interesting so much that we take our modern world, our modern language, and we could just plug it in there and it fits. And vice versa. We could take everything that's happening here, plug it in today, and it fits because it's the same. God says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So why would we say, oh, well, we have this thing and this thing and this thing? And he's like, I've already set these things in motion. I've already put it in place for you. And he goes on to say, he strengthens thee, he blesses thee, you may inherit the whole earth. This is commonplace language today. We read this and we're like, oh yeah, this fits. You could read this in your sermon this week that when you go to church. This is completely commonplace, and I love that it's written so cleanly and plainly here.
Yeah, I also wanted to point out too, guys, this I would recommend, and I think we probably ought to do a video on this. So we've got some words being used here. We've got this unrighteousness, impurity, uncleanness has been used, abominations has been used, transgressions, and sins of ignorance. I think it'd be really cool if we did a video that maybe breaks all of those down and really look at the detailed differences in all of those words and how they apply to us. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, well, let's do that soon, guys. Y'all remind us. All right, over here in 15. How about this, guys? This was really cool to me.
That caught my eye as well, Kyle.
And he may renew his covenant with thee. What say you, gentlemen?
That one I looked at multiple times, and I'm trying to. Part of me wants to go one way, part of me wants to go another way with this. Let's read it again together, though. It says, and may he renew his covenant with thee, that thou mayest be to him a nation for his inheritance for all the ages. That's including the age we live in of grace and the age that is to come, that is the Sabbath of rest. And so what we're seeing here is like this promise that the Father gave Abraham from the very beginning, when he showed him all the land, when he says, hey, all this is yours. But by the way, it's not just about the land, Abraham. It's going to be about your seed going forth from here in the covenant that I am making with you. And I believe in this blessing. He's saying, hey, may this covenant never leave us. May this covenant always be with us. May the Father continuously renew this covenant through all the ages that are to come. I'm not sure if Abraham knew of all the ages that were to come. But he's saying, hey, whatever is to come, may there always be a renewing of that covenant for all mankind. So,
absolutely,
yeah, that's where my brain went with it. I'm sure Jonathan's went another way. So we'll see.
Well, how did you know? Yeah, so I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at this as, who's the author? I'm looking at who wrote this. This is Moses writing this on Mount Sinai. And he's already in the process of doing the covenant with the people of Israel, the mixed multitude coming out of Egypt. So the thing that makes me kind of look at this, like Joe would say, of course I'm gonna have a different view, or a challenge for myself is, Moses is trying to understand something that we fail to understand today. This was the Mosaic law, and then they set up this new covenant thing, and then it's going to be done away with Jesus, and blah, 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 blah. And we just say a lot of really fast stuff with not too much scripture attached to it. And here, this is Moses. He would know. He's the Mosaic law guy and the covenant guy, and he's sitting there writing, renew a covenant. What's this talking about? I thought we just, so wait, this is a different. So, we have to give Moses some credit here for reading what he just wrote down and having understanding. And I think what we do is we read what's written down and lack understanding. And sometimes, I wonder, is this because Moses is having inspiration in this moment? I try to put myself in his shoes. He's on the mountain 40 days, 40 nights, writing Jubilees. And he's reading stuff. He's writing stuff that's like, I don't get it. I thought we were the chosen people, and he just saved us with the cloud and the fire and the water and the stick and all the other stuff, right? And he's like, well, what's this renewing of the covenant? I thought we had the covenant. There's another, but I think they were way more abreast to the information. I think they would have known, oh, this is the covenant with Adam. This is the covenant with Noah. This is the covenant with Abraham. Okay, thank goodness he's renewing it, because we're a part of this giant seed of people.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm literally in real life fulfilling this covenant prophecy with these people at the bottom of the mountain that I do want to hit in the head sometimes, but I don't. But he's realizing,
he tried to hit a few of them with some of the tablets. I think he tried to hit a few of them with the tablets.
Right. He's like, if I could fling this thing far enough away.
Far enough away.
But yeah, there's just something about, like, sometimes I forget to remember. Sure. That Moses is writing this stuff in history present, and he's having to deal with these verses that we have the luxury of thousands of years later seeing the whole story unfold. He's in the story unfolding and still having to kind of contend with all these thoughts and ideas. So that's just kind of what I want to throw in there.
Yeah.
Hey guys, y'all don't forget to remember to let Jonathan know what you think about all that in the comments down below. I love you, bro. Okay, what about down here in 16? I just thought this was neat right here, where it talks about separate thyself from the nations and eat not with them and do not according to their works. So I get the part where it says, and do not according to their works. I think this is a reference, obviously, to the bad stuff. And become not their associate, for their works are unclean. Right? I think some of those things are kind of obvious. But what about this? And eat not with them. Is this only because they're expecting them to be eating only unclean things? What's your guys' take on this? Because it almost would seem like some of the things that Yeshua would teach us would seem to kind of contradict this, and maybe in Paul's writings. Or is this maybe one of those things that people just don't have too much clarity on? What do you guys think?
All right. Well, we just finished talking about covenant, and me and Jonathan both sharing our views on covenant, and I think both of those, what both of us said, can actually mesh together. I think it's a good overall view of covenant. So a lot of times, biblically speaking, when you would come together with someone and you break bread and you have a meal together, it can be considered a covenant meal. It could be considered we are of the same belief. We are of the same, whatever that's going on. The first thing that really hit me when you were going back and reading this was I was thinking about the one world religion agenda that's being pushed right now. Matter of fact, it's being pushed on all religions, from Israel to Catholics to Christians to Protestants to you name it. They're talking about this one world religion. Now, to be a part of this one world religion means I'm now going to be in covenant with you and not with our Heavenly Father. I'm going to step outside of that covenant of the seed of Abraham now, because I'm breaking bread with people who don't even believe in Yeshua, don't believe in God. Matter of fact, they have their own gods they're believing in. So this is actually stretching across the Buddhism and all the other religions out there that they're trying to make a covenant with, in doing so. And God, and I believe in here this is foreshadowing a lot of these things that have taken place through the millennia and even till today. He's saying, hey, don't eat with them. They're unclean. Don't participate. Don't break bread with them. It says, and become not their associate. So when you see all these again, you've probably seen on television somewhere where all the different world religious leaders got together for their conference. And of all places, I thought it was interesting that they chose to do this in Israel, then end up in Egypt or something. However that happened, that they were trying to do what they were doing. But basically what they were saying was, we want you to now enter into a covenant with us. And for me, that's a no-go. That's not going to happen. I want to stay within the covenant of my Heavenly Father, because a much better covenant, and it's a covenant that's unto life and not death. So,
and just to clarify too, it does say for their works are unclean, not that they themselves are unclean.
Right.
But yeah, with all the things that they do, their works.
Oh yeah.
Just don't even associate with them, for their works are unclean, and their ways are a pollution and an abomination. What is pollution? Mm-hmm. Pollution is something that it gets in the air, and it
or the water or whatever.
The water. Yeah, and it gets in you, and pollution's a little different than we think of pollution differently than we think of poison. So we would never consume poison. We don't really put that much thought into consuming pollution. It's no big deal.
Yeah, and to all those points that we're making here about the separation and the holy and not eating, and there's a lot there listed, and I'm thankful for that, because if it was just don't eat, we would not have like probably the proper context and the full understanding of what's going on there.
Right.
And if you guys haven't already, we do have a video that we've posted called Set Apart, and it goes into some of this of what that looks like and why, the hows. And I think here we're just getting a small tidbit of what he's trying to share with Jacob of, hey, this is the how, this is the why, that I want you to be, as it says, separate thyself from the nations. That word separate is to keep holy, to remain pure. So yes, if you have your perfect and pure something and you mix it with something else, it's now mixed, it's now tainted, it's no longer holy, pure, set apart,
right,
and individual as it's meant to be. And it's in no way of being elitist, it's no way of saying that those people are less than. It's saying keep these words, these commands, these ways, these practices, keep them set apart, because they're meant to be holy. They're meant to be a city on a hill. They're meant to draw people to you. And as they come to you, then we let them adopt your ways, our ways, the Father's ways, because those are the true ways that the world should be following, because it tells you these is for the whole world, all the ages and the whole world. So what do you look like going into the world and trying to bring that to them? Because you're naturally going to have to mix. You're not going to be able to bring a holy, pure thing into the world and then remain holy and pure. It just doesn't work that way. And the Father in his infinite wisdom says, I know that. That's why I called you a set apart people. That's why I gave you a set apart land. That's why all of these events are set up the way that they're set up to help you out. So when I say don't eat with them, it's not so much that I don't love them, that I don't want you to interact with them. I don't want you to get caught up in the hustle and bustle. I don't want you to be sitting at their table and talking about their HOAs and talking about how their donkey's got all the wrong gear on or whatever, because you're going to get attached and you're going to be an associate. That word is used in there. Don't be their associate, because now your business dealings line up with their business dealings, and you're going to be doing these weird covenant things that you weren't ever supposed to do. And it's just a protection. The Father truly just wants to protect his people while bringing as many as he can into the fold. He says, bring them all in if you can. But if you can't, keep yourselves holy and pure and set apart. And we're really going to see how that plays out as we get into 17.
And for 17 and the rest, you will have to come see us next week. So we will see you then for part 2 of chapter 22 in the book of Jubilees. God bless.
Shalom.
Ciao.